Hello folks, welcome to Canal Channel Jose. Today we're going to give you an idea how to replace the expansion valve on the air conditioning system of a 2007 to 2012 Toyota Camry. And this also applies for a Toyota Avalon. So if your system looks like what we're going to show you, it's going to guide you and help you. So on our case, we had the car diagnosed and it ended up being the valve. So for us to, we took it to a shop, they got diagnosed, and then they were going to charge us a lot of money for replacing the valve. So we just went and bought it for about $30, and we're going to be doing the labor. The system has to be uncharged. That means that there has to be no pressure on the system, because you're going to open the air conditioning system and there's high pressures in there. So you want to make sure that the system is not under pressure, that there's completely empty it, and so you can open it. If you want to save a lot of money, if you want to do it yourself, this is going to help you. But if you rather take it to a shop and pay some money so for somebody else to do it, that's up to you. We're just giving you an idea how is this done. So with that said, let's jump right into it. This is the component that we're going to be replacing. It looks like this is on a bag, and it has a couple connections. So this is the expansion valve. It comes with some O-rings for the fittings, and this is made by Four Seasons, and that's a part number for this car. So that's how it looks. Now we're going to show you where this component is located at. Where this is located is right there. Right there, you see the aluminum pipe. Well, to get access to that, we have to remove this plastic cover that covers the coils and all the other stuff on top of the valve cover, to have access so we can fit our hands in there. Then we're going to have to remove that 10 millimeter bolt right there so we can move that plate backwards, and that's your low side and your high side line. So then we have to remove that so we can start getting the valve. There's two more screws underneath that plate that we have to take off to pull and extract our valve. So with that, let's remove that plastic cover so we can start getting to the 10 millimeter bolt. And tools, what we're going to be using is a ratchet 3/8 with a 10 millimeter deep socket. And also we're going to be using a 4 millimeter Allen wrench. And we're going to be using an extension for 3/8 with a 3/8 Allen wrench 4 millimeter. So to bring two bolts out by hand once you loosen them with this. And then also to remove the O-rings, we're going to be using these picks. And we got a wire brush to clean the threads on the bolts, so when we put them back in, they're clean. So we don't, it's aluminum what we're working with. So these are the basic tools that we use. So now before we start taking the 10 millimeter bolt with our 10 millimeter socket and our extension, so we can get that component off, first thing is very important that make sure your car is cooled down and that your air conditioning system is depressurized. There's no pressure at all. So for replacing any component on the air conditioning system, you want to make sure that is no pressure on it, so that way when you start disconnecting fittings, there's no liquid flying everywhere, because it's under high pressures. So once there's no pressure at all, then you can start removing components. So now that we know that there's no pressure on our car, we start removing the 10 millimeter bolt. So now that we have removed the plastic cover over this, we have a better image of what we're going to be working at. And it's going to be right on that bolt, 10 millimeters. So now we can start taking out that bolt. So now that we have taken out the 10 millimeter bolt, this plate is just pressing this and the bottom line against the valve. So now that we have done that, we can unhook it from the bottom one and slide it away, and then we can undo this line, just pull it off, and the bottom one, so we can start getting to the Allen wrench 2 bolts that hold the actual valve to the internal components. So this is just to keep these lines against this valve. So once we remove all this out of here, we can start removing those 2 Allen wrenches bolts, and we can start pulling the valve outwards. So now that we have disconnected the 2 lines, we're going to be taking 2 Allen wrenches screws or bolts off so we can start pulling this valve away. So now to take out those two Allen wrench bolts off, we're using a 4 millimeter Allen wrench to take them and loosen them up. To start loosening those two Allen wrench, I would recommend using a Allen wrench and doing it by hand. Once you get them loose, then you can start putting electric tools if you have them. Don't start with electric tools because you want to feel how it's coming out and then feel the torque, and then so that way it doesn't strip it. So now that we have loosened them, we're going to put our wrench electric ratchet. So now that you have loosened both the Allen wrenches completely off, you remove them slowly. Careful, don't loosen because you're going to need them. So now then after we remove these two bolts, we can start getting the valve out of there. So now because the valve is kind of flush with the firewall, what we're going to be doing is we put our 10 millimeter bolt into it that it was holding the plate against it, and then we can just grab it from there and pull it off slowly so we can take the valve out of there because it's kind of flush with the firewall. So that's going to be our anchor to grab it from. So now the bolt is going to help us, like we're taking a nail out of the piece of wood with a hammer and just work it because there's two connections in the other side, just like the ones we took off with the O-rings, and those are the ones making the pressure, so that's not letting it slide. So just grab it and work it slowly, and don't damage it, just feel for it, and then just keep us pulling kind of straight out. So here's our valve that we just took out. This is the new one, and we haven't taken it out of the package, but this is what we took out, and it looks the same. So this is the malfunction on our system. So as you can see, there's two fittings on the other side that we were fighting. So that's where the other two O-rings are gonna go inside there. So with a pig, we gotta take those two old O-rings in there and put the new ones in there and the new ones on this side as well. So now using one of these picks, we got this one and we got a straight one. See which one works better for us to take off the O-rings on those fittings. So now here's the old O-rings, the black ones, and we have them by size. This is the high line on the outside, low side on the outside, and these two are for the actual internal part, high side and low side. So we're gonna be putting the O-rings first in the internal, then the outside, and then we put the valve, tighten it, and then start putting back the lines. We have to lubricate this a little bit so everything slides in. There is where the valve was attached to, the two orifice openings, the two pipes, and the two threads on the side between them where the valve bolts on. So now we have put the O-ring, so now we can start sliding, or we can lube up a little bit the O-ring so we can start putting the valve in. So now we just grab a Q-tip with a little bit of oil, rub it around the O-ring, and then we can start putting the valve on. Now we grab our valve, we put a little bit of oil for AC, and then we can bolt it down. So now that we have tightened in the valve to the internal unit, we can start setting our high side and our lower side with the plate and make sure it's hooked right, and put the 10 millimeter bolt in there and tighten it. So now that we have put the bottom line and the upper line into the valve, and with a plate and hooked into the high side, we put our 10mm bolt and we tighten it. And there it is, brand new expansion valve. So we just gotta take it to get it vacuum and fill up with the AC again with Freon. Well, folks, hopefully this video was useful and helpful how to replace the expansion valve on the air conditioning system on a 2007 to 2012 Toyota Camry, and it also applies for the Avalon. So if this system or your system is exactly or right in the same area on your Toyota, this is going to help you and give you an idea how to replace this expansion valve without having to remove the internals on the cabin. So if you can go through here, but it's a little reduced of a space, but it can be done. So we pay about $30 for this component, but the labor to do it, that's where it gets costly. So we have to have this system with no pressure at all, and then once you put and do this replacement, you want to have a vacuum, and then you can put the new Freon in. But for that, you might want to take it to a shop, because that's something that you want to do with an expert. But with the replacement, this is how you do it. So the tools, pretty simple, nothing fancy. And then the valve, it cost us about $30. And like we said, just take your time. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, but they take it to a shop. But this is an idea what you can do and save a lot of money by doing it yourself. So with that said, folks, for our friends who are watching our video, haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you like the video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here on el canal del Channel Jose.